right. Let's kick things off. So before we go any further, let's just start with very quick intros. Just state your name and the blockchain that you represent.
Illia, near.
Mo, Aptos.
Adeniyi, Sui.
OK, amazing. And then hopefully we'll have one more joining us soon. So each of you represents a different layer 1 blockchain. What is the killer feature that sets your platform apart from the other ones on this stage? OK? Direct that answer at them, not at me.
Usability.
Are you answering for me?
So for us, we focus from the start on usability. And usability spans across account model. It spans across programming model. It spans across kind of how you scale the network such that developers and users don't need to think about the underlying kind of infrastructure. And so kind of at every layer of stack, we think, how do we simplify, make it easy for people to onboard, to build, to kind of leverage this technology, and ideally don't need to know about specific details of the underlying tech?
I think usability is a great one. We think about it across the entire ecosystem, not only for developers, but also for the end user. Coming from the Facebook world, we want it to be as easy as possible for someone who is not a Web3 native individual to be able to use the protocol. And so this is where we enable things like Move, right? A smart contract language that makes it really easy and safe and secure, also abstracting away the complexity for the developer. Right? And we just announced a partnership with someone like Microsoft where that development is going to become even easier. That allows the developers to build applications that are focused on innovation instead of focusing on spending a lot of time struggling with a stack. And so usability has to be enabled. But how do you do that? We think Move is a differentiating factor.
Yeah, I mean, I'm actually happy to be on a panel hearing people talking about usability rather than scale, because that gets super boring very quickly. For us, our focus is really enabling developers to build great applications. Right now, we think the multitude of problems, namely, for consumers, namely, the idea of a wallet is quite troublesome for many product flows. The idea of gas is idiotic for many flows. In fact, you can lose most of your onboarding flow as a result of just introducing that paradigm. And just a pure concept of not knowing what you're agreeing to when you approve a smart contract. So these are the things we've built into Sui in day one. So namely, you can onboard via email. You don't have to worry about gas because it's sponsored by some other entity. So from a large extent, if you're a game developer or you're a DeFi protocol, you can onboard people a lot more easier. So we can go into a lot of other details, but I think I'll spare the time.
Gun, it's great to have you. Glad you could join us. Very briefly, your name, the blockchain you represent, and the first question is, what is the killer feature that sets your platform apart from the others on the stage?
Sure. My name is Emin. I'm the founder of Ava Labs, which is the company behind the Avalanche blockchain. Simply put, Avalanche is the most technically innovative system out there. It innovated on the most fundamental level with the consensus protocol. It is completely different than everybody else's consensus protocol, far, far, far more efficient than others. But it also innovated on bridges. It brought in the idea of SGX into using bridges that are secure, unhackable, trustworthy. It innovated with the use of various wallets. The core wallet is the best of its kind for using cross-chain, multi-chain assets. And of course, it innovated with the use of Ava Cloud, the idea of launching custom bespoke blockchains. Those are the things that make us very different.
So speaking of differences, one big similarity between Aptos and Sui is that you both kind of come from this Move ecosystem, but there's a significant differences between how the two of you represent that ecosystem. Talk to us about the differences between the two blockchains and why, how do you conceptualize Move, given that you two are the different representatives of that ecosystem?
Sure, happy to go first. So our team is made up of a lot of the engineers and researchers that developed the DM blockchain. Evan Chang was the head of R&D for Facebook that was running Libra. Sam, the inventor of the Move programming language, George Costas, the inventor of all the crypto we built at Facebook, and myself that ran the product team that led R&D. So we had a different approach. When we're building Libra, the goal was really focused around enabling banks to on-ramp. So you had VASPs add access to the network, and then users, it basically didn't have a direct access to the network. So we were not really challenged to build the most scalable chain. We're challenged to build something that works and would meet the regulatory compliance that was needed. When we left Facebook, we were not given any of the shackles. So we took Move, reinvented it, actually improved it, made it object-based. We're able to take some really complex consensus protocols that we're working with at Facebook and actually improve them better, Narwhal and Bullshark and FastPay. And we put them all into one system. So Sui Move has a benefit of it's horizontally scaled, so there's no max TPS. It's object-oriented, so if you're a normal object-oriented programmer, you understand Sui Move very, very easily. It doesn't have gas that goes and spikes based on usage because block space is not a rare resource like other blockchains. So I think we've taken an approach where developers can build, just like you expect to deploy something on Amazon or Google, where you have fixed fees. When a network gets busy, you add more resources, and it takes care of the demand. So that element is what we've actually built. We have decades and decades of experience building systems that are used by billions and billions of people day in, day out. That's the expertise we brought into SwiMove.
So Aptos Move is special. And we also have an amazing team that's been working on Move for a long time. And going along the lines of what Illia was talking about, we think about usability. And so you can have all sorts of innovations, but if no one is using them, they don't really matter. And so instead, what we think about when we think about Move is enabling things to continue to make it easier for developers. One is we have something called a Move Prover. The Move Prover allows you to formal verification before you actually deploy a Move smart contract. That makes Aptos Move differentiated from the Move that's out there. The second, which we think is really important, is making updates at the language layer. Sui, I believe, makes it at the adapter layer. And so by making those improvements at the language layer, now you have much more usability when it comes to writing those smart contracts as well. And so this is something that's not something we're looking at in a silo. I don't know, Emin, if you heard of Move Mint. It's a group of people that actually came together that are trying to put Move in the Avalanche ecosystem, and it's the Aptos Move, and that's very exciting for us. Even folks like Polygon are taking note of what we built within that ecosystem and implementing block STM. We really appreciate that at Aptos. And then you have partners that are really taking advantage of it. Right? So with innovation comes market demand. And so when we started speaking with Microsoft a while ago, they realized Aptos Move is equally special for them. And so they've enabled building things like GitHub Copilot using Move, where smart contract development will become even easier for developers. So that's very exciting. And then the last thing is, yes, it's nice to see Web2 companies take advantage of Aptos Move. But 2 days ago, we just announced SushiSwap. SushiSwap, an EVM darling, been building in the space for almost, since the very early days. They saw Aptos Move and realized there's something deep here. We've only been live for 11 months. They've seen the changes that we've made, 47 AIPs, pushed Move language to that usability component, and they feel comfortable taking Aptos Move and bringing it to the EVM world, which we think is really special too.
So Haseeb, I want to jump in also and say a few things. So I know the question was all about Move, but I want to accentuate two things. One, Avalanche, unlike many other systems out there, Avalanche is not a single chain system. Remember that there are systems out there. I would say Bitcoin is a single chain, single asset system. It's changed with ordinals, but it's really one chain, one asset. Ethereum is a single chain, multiple assets. Many other chains are single chain, multiple assets. Avalanche is multiple chains. Each and every one of those chains can be different and have a different VM in it. And when it comes to, for example, a new and emerging virtual machine like Move, we can easily spin out a new chain with the Move virtual machine in it. And that's exactly what some people are doing on top of us with the movement system, where we're taking the Move VM and making it run inside the Avalanche ecosystem so that you can seamlessly access the exact same new features of the Move virtual machine that were developed. And now on that topic, the second thing I want to point out is that the granddaddy of Move is, of course, Libra, Facebook's initial attempt at starting a new virtual machine in this space. And Libra's, the first author on the Libra paper, it was my student. When I was a professor at Cornell University, I sent my student to the West Coast for a summer. He came back saying, I worked on something cool. And it turns out he was the first author of what eventually became Libra's consensus protocol. And then he said, but I want to work on something truly innovative, and I want to work on Avalanche. So that's part of the Avalanche story as well.
Did you just call me the granddaddy?
No comment. No comment.
So, Gun, I had a question I want to direct at you. So of anybody on the stage, I think we can say that Avalanche, with the dominance of the C chain, has shown the most embrace of the EVM out of all these folks on stage. How do you think about the EVM? So, something actually Jill Carlson once told me is that the number one lesson from the last few years of building blockchains is never fight Ethereum. How do you reflect on the role of Ethereum and sort of its gravitational force as you guys are building out Avalanche?
That's a great question. So first and foremost, all of us on Avalanche, almost all of us, I would say 99% of us, came from Ethereum. So we love Ethereum, we want it to succeed, and Avalanche emerged as a scalability solution for Ethereum. Ethereum, it wasn't clear if it was going to be able to make the switch to proof of stake, and it talked a big game. So the game, as you know, this is the entire crypto space, is full of people who sell dreams. They dangle a carrot in front of you, and often that carrot is forever ahead of you. It's kind of like waiting for Godot. You're waiting for something to happen, and it just never appears there. It just never arrives. And one of the main things, the main value proposition we brought is we know how to build systems. Other people can do the salesman job, but we are here to deliver the dream that other people are promising to you. So we started out with the EVM. We wanted the EVM to run a lot faster, and we showed the world how that could be done. I got so much pushback when we were initially coming out, saying that's not where the bottlenecks are, et cetera, et cetera. And we saw through the bull market that Avalanche was consistently far, far cheaper than Ethereum. So you're right. We don't want to fight with Ethereum. We want it to succeed. We want the EVM to win. Almost everybody in this room who's done smart contract programming has touched the EVM. I know I touched the EVM, and I don't want to lose that expertise. I want to be able to carry that forward. At the same time, I don't want to be hampered by lack of delivery. I don't want to forever wish for things that are not being delivered. I would like us to, for example, build really fast chains. I would like us to have application-specific chains. I strongly believe, for example, that a single chain can never conquer the world. The world is a complex place. So Singaporean rules are different from American rules, different from Chinese rules, different from every other rule out there. You need to be able to have chains that are specific to different use cases. And that's one of the key value propositions that Avalanche brings. So that's how I think of it. We think of ourselves as entirely complementary. Vitalik has always been a close friend, somebody I love dearly. I want Ethereum to succeed, but I don't know that it can get there with the vision it's on. And I think of Avalanche as delivering a different vision. We fundamentally differ on how that can be done. We don't believe in punting the problem to a different layer. We believe in solving problems. We believe in fast consensus. We believe in fast implementations and innovative uses of cutting-edge technology in blockchains, and that's what we've been doing.
So, Illia, so Near takes a very different approach than the other folks on this stage. Not just the virtual machine, but also in the consensus, right? So Ethereum has talked a big game about sharding, and now at this point, it's more or less abandoned the goal that it's had of eventually actually shipping something sharded. How do you think about sharding as a part of how Near is telling a bigger story than the story that Ethereum was trying to tell?
Yeah, so kind of generally speaking, I mean, folks from Meta knows this very well. Like, what you want is ability to scale with more demand. You want to make sure that you don't come to Netflix and when you try to watch a movie, it says like, hey, it's going to cost you more because other people watching the same movie, right? And ideally, like, this should be true about any application, not just you're saying like, well, there's some applications that are really busy and like now you need to figure this out. So from this perspective, kind of the only way to do this is to do parallel processing. And so the question, and like all of us are doing parallel processing, and everybody else in kind of layer 1 and layer 2 world is doing that. The question is how you do it, and what are the kind of things that you're pushing to the user and developer land, right? And so kind of original vision for Ethereum, like with sharding, was that the developers and users don't need to know about what kind of specific shard computation it is. And we really like trying to take that as far as possible, where like actually if you go to our block explorer, you will not see shards, although they're there. Like as a user or developer, you should not need to think about it. Like ideally, it can expand and collapse capacity as it needs to. And at the same time, you should be able to write applications that potentially is themselves sharded and can process any kind of amount of throughput. Now, you still need this flexibility that EVM, Move, and other platforms offer. And kind of generically, what you want is VM like on the base level that can offer anything, right? And so we chose WebAssembly, which is something that everybody uses, right? Every single browser, every single like on-edge compute right now using WebAssembly. And it allows to run all of the other stuff on top of it. So we've been running EVM for the past 2 years on top of our WebAssembly engine with like very little overhead, which is just showcasing you can take another blockchain just to run it as a smart contract on Near. And so, you can do similar with Move. You can do similar with, for example, we've done it with JavaScript. So we have full end-to-end JavaScript applications as well. But kind of beyond that, I mentioned we're trying to abstract this complexity. Well, we do acknowledge that there's other layer 1s, there's other layer 2s, and so that complexity is still there. And so what we've been working on for the past year, what we call blockchain operating system, is really abstracting that out even more. And so now with decentralized front ends that we have and some of the identity solutions we're doing, what we want users to do is actually not think about layer 1s or layer 2s. They should be using applications. And applications may live, part of it may live on one layer 1, part of it on layer 2, account may live on the other thing. And we have all the routing and kind of remote accounts and everything underneath, figuring all this out and just providing the end-to-end decentralized front end for this. And that's kind of the ultimate vision is really not about, we have all those layer 1s competing. It's really about kind of all of these networks will cross-settle to each other, and you'll have just experiences on top that everybody can use.
Yeah. OK, so far, I think this discussion has been pretty abstract. I want to kind of bring it down to a normal user level. I'd love to hear from each of you one feature or some technical feature that's on the roadmap for your blockchain that's going to improve the user experience. Like that a normal user interacting with your blockchain will be like, this is awesome.
Yeah, so we launched FastAuth, which is a way to sign up with an email, and we use passkey, that's secure enclave in your device to create cryptography, multi-party computation, which is being used by validators to recover your account. So you don't need to install wallet, you don't need to see the 0x stuff, and you can use an account. Now, the next thing we're launching with that is what we call remote accounts. So now that you have a Near account, you'll be able to transact on all other chains because we actually have cryptography kind of signing your transactions by the Near validator network on all other chains on your behalf as you transact through Near. So Near will become, in a way, a hub that kind of custodies your accounts on all other chains, similar how you have it with Coinbase on Binance, but it's fully non-custodial, fully decentralized. And so this allows to now realize this vision I mentioned where you log into an app and you start transacting on different DeFi applications, gaming, et cetera, and it doesn't matter which chains they're on, right, because you have this identity solution. And so we just rolled out DApp, which is a DeFi aggregator that already has all the layer 2, a bunch of layer 2s, Near, and a few other chains are coming to really abstract out and showcase this almost like app store kind of aggregator of applications in one place. So, check it out.
It's hard to pick one. There's so many. I think Illia talked about a few things that a lot of us are probably working on when it comes to abstracting away the complexity, the sign-on component. And I think that brings a lot of Web2 users into Web3. There's kind of one interesting model for us that we've been paying very close attention to. Sharding is certainly one thing, right? Consensus mechanisms are continuously evolving as well, and happy to go into more detail if we have enough time. But I think, there's so many games that have been exploring and building in Web3. And a lot of them have started picking Aptos. But there's one interesting feature that we're going to be rolling out that's going to be quite unique. On-chain, stake-based randomness. And so now, you can have randomization on-chain. That randomness is secured by the same stake that's being used to secure the blockchain itself. And so if you think about what that really means is, imagine you go to an online casino where trust does not necessarily exist today. Imagine you're trying to open up a treasure chest within a game. You can now have randomization that is actually available, again, and secure, that we think is going to be obviously a differentiator. Gaming is taking full advantage of that. But there's so many other interesting things that you can apply that to. So I think on-chain stake-based randomness is something that we're very excited about on Aptos, and we'll be the only ones to provide that.
Yeah, a bit of context. I think for us, we all talk about usability, and I think I can't agree any more with Illia. You're doing a great job here. One of the things we're very excited about is something we're calling ZK login. This is the first bit of technology using ZK proofs as a measure of allowing anyone to use any existing OAuth ID. So Microsoft, Facebook, Google, you name it, any Web2 identity you have today with a ZK proof using an SDK effectively can prove itself on-chain and create deterministic accounts. So this means any wallet in the world, any website in the world can effectively have a SWI account without having to either pay gas or even worry about the complexities of a chain. We already have people building casinos on SWI using randomization. We already have on-chain randomness. These are areas, I think, in terms of numbers, right, there are 60 games signed up to be on SWI, 50 game studios. Some of the largest game studios in the world are already building on SWI, and we're only in it for 4 months. So everything we focused on is really on enabling enterprise to build at scale applications that would work for them, allow them to be profitable. So if you're building an app or a game, you do not want to worry about gas going up or down. Gas in SWI, dollar-wise, is always flat because the validators quote on a per epoch basis what the gas price should be. And you as a game studio, if a game costs half a cent to play today, in 5 weeks, it'll still be half a cent. That is very unique to SWI and unique in the ecosystem as a whole.
So this is a roadmap question. And I want to first point out a meta-level issue. Anytime a roadmap question comes up, there's a tendency for people to stand in front of you and to try to dazzle you with keywords. Fully homomorphic this, ZK this, accumulators, verifiable delay functions, verifiable random functions, and so on. And I know that the crowds eat this up, okay? And the funny thing is, I think I'm definitely the second most cited author of a Bitcoin paper after Satoshi Nakamoto. And I think I'm the academic with the most number of publications in the blockchain space. I could do that up here with you all day long, and I will choose not to. And I want you to, if you take away anything from this, this is the big differentiator for Avalanche. We're not here to forever deliver to you a whole bunch of gobbledygook. And I want to talk about something very different. One of the most exciting things on our roadmap is a new kind of subnet. A subnet that is not based on the EVM. In fact, it's not based on any VM at all. But it's a subnet that incorporates a large language model inside. So if those of you who have heard of ChatGPT, think of ChatGPT running in every validator. What does this allow you to do? It allows you to write smart contracts in our natural languages. So you can write something like, this transaction defines a new lending service that accepts payments in 2 different coins and allows people to borrow against one collateral using the other. And you write this in English or Thai or Chinese or what have you, any language that the LLM understands. There is absolutely no hexadecimal numbers, no weird acronyms, no strange crypto gobbledygook. It's just hardcore working application of AI to blockchains. And I'm supremely excited about this because I can now write. This example that I've always used was always the fact that with blockchains I can do things that my bank won't let me do. What does my bank let me do? It allows me to write a check. And then what do blockchains do today? They allow us to write glorified checks, but it's very difficult to use them. And now I can write something like, I'd like to donate to your movie in English. or whatever other language. I'd like to donate $5,000 to your movie, assuming you can meet your funding requirement of $5 million. Otherwise, the payment reverts back to me on this date. This is something I just write in ASCII, in text, and then the validators interpret it the same way a trustee would interpret a well-written contract in English. And I'm really excited about this.
I mean, as a researcher in blockchain, you realize how dangerous this is, right?
Absolutely.
And this is like me being the most excited person about AI and blockchain possible. I had a panel about this in the morning.
Yes.
But this is this is giving a grenade to everyone, pretty much, in a way that unexpected consequences are just going to explode.
Absolutely. We're going to start with a non-value bearing net, and I cannot wait to see what people do. I do expect, Illia, you have a very good point. So I do expect there to evolve a series of layered prompts that people build on, so that once a proper person who understands what they're doing has come up with the right preamble, then people build on that and expand it. Will people lose money because of badly worded, badly specified contracts? Absolutely. That's why we start out with a non-value bearing network.
I mean, right now we already have, with various IZKML or optimistic stuff, this type of things, right? People are already playing with this. And so far, I mean, the only use case that people are exploring mostly just yield optimization. But kind of beyond that, I think what I'm excited about is, how do we do DAO coordination with this? And I think there you still need a lot of oversight of people on kind of decisions before it's executed. And so I think just saying, hey, I'm going to send a piece of text and it's going to execute and run is just kind of, I would say, extremely oversimplifying the, what are all the pieces that needs to go into making this truly work in real use cases.
That's exactly what we need to do. We need to come up with things that anyone can use, that anybody could just wield at their disposal, and write in their own natural language, not necessarily having to rely on complicated bytecodes, hexadecimal stuff, or various different complicated cryptological schemes. Are there dangers? Absolutely. I am not one to play them down. So there are lots and lots of dangerous pitfalls when you start using this. Who will thrive in this? I suspect a different kind of person than the smart contract programmers of today. I suspect lawyers will actually be very, very good at specifying smart contracts in this new natural language format. Are there pitfalls? Absolutely. Lots and lots of pitfalls. In fact, when I actually introduced this idea, the very first slide, the very first slide said there will be a lot of money lost. Beware. But it's definitely worth exploring. If it's a big enough vision, then we must necessarily explore it.
Okay, so Gun, you were criticizing me for asking a roadmap question. So I will take that and ask a more application-facing question. What is today? Explain in very simple language. What is the biggest application on your chain? What does it do?
Loyalty, payments. So the biggest application on Near is the biggest application in Web3 right now, which is Kaiching, which is a Singaporean company. And they're doing loyalty and payments. And they choose Near over Stripe because we're cheaper, faster. You can do pretty much delivery of the payments instantly instead of waiting for 2 weeks in Stripe case. And a bunch of use cases kind of after that are in a very similar vein, be that in gaming, fitness, et cetera. They're all around
just one.
Loyalty.
Just one. All right, Mo.
Damn. Tight hook.
I
think
million active users, weekly active. So
I'm going to charge you for that. I think for us, there's so many, to your point. We think about, I know, I'm trying to think of one. I mean, one of the more interesting ones for us that takes all this, all the topics that we talked about and actually brings it to life is an application called Chingari. They started off as a TikTok competitor in India because TikTok was facing its challenges. And this team built out an amazing product that actually thinks about creators in new ways, in new models that social platforms today would not necessarily be able to compete with. You can award users directly through Loot and creators directly. And so we think that's a completely big shift from the way ad models have existed today. Loot exists as a digital asset. User accounts are wallets. There are NFTs associated within the application. And all of these are completely abstracted away from the end user. Millions of people are using this application. They have 45 million monthly active users. that's amazing. They were building on a protocol previous to Aptos and were running into reliability issues. They found out what Aptos was doing and how Move was a differentiating factor, and that gave them the confidence to actually go and actually scale their Web3 business and bring those users on-chain. They were able to get 2 million users on-chain in 2 years on this previous protocol. Within integrating Aptos, within 2 weeks, they were able to migrate 2 million users onto Aptos in 2 weeks. And so, we just love that there's, to Emin's point, there's all this fancy stuff that we can all talk about. But when you want millions of users actually using these applications, you need to provide a seamless interface and infrastructure that actually works, and we're excited for Chingari to take advantage of that.
Great. For us, as you can tell, we've been live for 4 months now, so we're very early in the space. The biggest pivot area and focus for us has actually been gaming. And that's actually, in fact, Sui had the most amount of transactions in a single day of any blockchain that's ever existed. So we've built something at scale. On-chain gaming is an area we're very well invested in. There's a particular game, 8192, that you can play. I can play half the game. I can transfer the rest of the game to a friend who can complete that, and then whoever completes the game can win a prize, right? So the idea of social-based gaming, where all game state is stored on-chain, and you can actually have a mix where some on-game state is off-chain, and then some element of that is on-chain. So it brings in a whole new level of composability and gameplay that just that has never existed before. Yeah.
So we have a lot of applications, of course, but I think the one that I actually recently looked at is our collaboration with SK Planet. SK is obviously the big South Korean conglomerate. They have millions and millions of users and hundreds of thousands of merchants. And they recently launched a KYC AML subnet for that set of users, where the users can go and use their loyalty points at any of the merchants, do payments, etc. It's a very good example of a region-specific, jurisdiction-specific network that has its own rules that are separate from the main network. Our DeFi is completely shielded from this. Our games tick along at their own speed, and they don't impact this network, nor does this network impact them. And that performance isolation, that failure isolation, is one of the big selling points of the multi-chain idea.
So what I heard from most of you guys was that the big application on your chain is some kind of Web 2.5, a Web 2 company basically integrating some kind of thing. If I recall, call it a year and a half ago, the only thing anybody cared about was DeFi. The only thing anybody cared about was these real crypto-native, like kind of hardcore degen type applications. And it seems like now we're somewhat migrating away from that. How do you think, as you're a layer one, thinking about who you want to attract to your ecosystem and the relative value of these different kinds of applications, has the value of DeFi or these more crypto-native things changed over the last couple of years? I mean, since you were last to go and you're the most mature blockchain with respect to the DeFi ecosystem that's been present on you guys, how do you think about that for Avalanche?
So this is my take on this. There are lots and lots of exciting verticals out there. There's the gaming vertical, right? That there's a lot of demand for high-speed blockchains, and there are, of course, a lot of false starts that a lot of companies have done in that space, and they're coming to us looking for a fast solution. There is, of course, the loyalty space. There's a whole bunch of others that one could go through, and DeFi is the sort of the hardcore at the bottom of it all. Now, how do I view this? Any chain, in my opinion, any chain that gets out of the gate, I'm giving ideas to my competitors here, but here is my take. Any chain that gets out of the gate and says, we're going to do X or Y or Z for any X or Y or Z is destined to fail. If you have a truly winning solution, it should be good at everything. Is DeFi not as important as it used to be? That's true. There are less users today than there were during the bull market. But DeFi is a cornerstone. And if you're good at it, you should always have a strong, vibrant DeFi core. And the types of things that when I talk to other people, the types of things that get them excited, the types of things that get me excited, are those things that they cannot do with their existing institutions. And to be able to say, here, I can do a lending process within 5 minutes, or in fact, within 2 minutes, just mostly clicking around, instead of having to go to the bank and do a borrow against your assets in a bank, which takes multiple days, is a huge winning proposition. So it's something that is always going to be near and dear to our heart. And if there are going to be a gazillion assets on-chain worth trillions of dollars, you need to have the rails for those assets to be traded easily across the entire world.
Yeah. Adeniyi, how do you think about it?
So Sui is a highest growing DeFi ecosystem outside of EVM. And that's all the work that we've been focusing on. I think DeFi, it's actually important to have a healthy DeFi ecosystem. My only concern about DeFi to a large extent is I always argue that it's mostly people gambling against each other. It's a very small market. Not a lot of real people actually trading there. This thing only starts to matter when you actually have scale. I imagine if I bring in 30 million game players into an ecosystem and they need to swap their in-game token for an actual USDC or for some other local currency, that's when I think they've sold DeFi as the product, when really, to me, it's part of the infrastructure. It's a component you utilize to actually meet a need rather than being the actual product itself. So I think from our perspective, we believe DeFi is here to stay. We think it's only going to continually grow. But I think right now is really just commonplace for the traders, right? It's not something that retailers can actually, the retail market can get a lot of benefit out of. They'll rather trade in their Charles Schwab account or trade in their Coinbase account for now, until you can offer a much better benefit beyond just yield farming. I find it hard for that space to grow significantly.
I agree, but I also think that DeFi is a little underrated and doesn't get the respect that it deserves, right? Financial systems have been carved off for the select few. And I think what DeFi did is really open up financial access. I think Emin tried to describe this a little bit. But if you are living in a different part of the world where you don't have access to a dollar, now you do through stablecoins. You can now take that dollar and implement it and put it to work somewhere. Now, where they put it to work, I don't know, right? And so, but I do think there are institution-grade DeFi projects that are out there. They've done an amazing job. Sushi is one of those that'll be launching on Aptos. But there's so many more. We're just at the sort of the tipping point here. I was at BlackRock where we were thinking about how do you bring interoperability across different markets across the world. And if you look at exchanges today, they operate in silos and subnets of sorts. But I think, just coming out of some of our trips in Asia, sidechains and subnets are actually looked at as you're creating the same environment, the same siloed environment. Open financial systems actually need interoperability with each other. So we actually disagree with the subnet approach. It doesn't necessarily make sense because you're just creating another environment where only people can stay together. You did nothing, right? So if we actually want to open up access to financial systems, you need everyone to play friendly. Franklin Templeton's SEC filing just went live. They're launching $1 million money market fund on Aptos' mainnet, permissionless, not some side chain, because they realize they don't need a side chain. They can do everything that they wanted directly on the mainnet, and we think that's something that's very powerful and allows for, again, inclusive participation in these financial systems.
Let's let Gun respond to that.
Yeah, I think I need to respond to this. So the beauty of subnets is that they interoperate to the extent that they are allowed to. So depending on the creator's wishes, you can
you just said that they don't interact with anybody.
Could you not
okay.
Let me finish. So if you want to have a private permission deployment, you could easily do that. If you wanted to have a private permission deployment, you could easily have that with subnets. So all of those use cases that we are used to from years past work just naturally on a subnet. But if you want to have a subnet dedicated to the Singaporean users or to South Korean users or whatever else, and they want to transfer funds, we provide, for example, the warp messaging, the trustless messaging primitives to allow assets to be transferred from one to the other. The sidenet idea, the sidechain idea is different. So those people whose idea of blockchains are rooted in 2 years ago or 5 years ago will get waylaid and will get confused about what it is that we offer. So this is a fully interoperable system that allows people to build networks that respect jurisdictional boundaries. If you don't want to use them, that's great. We still have the world's fastest consensus network. So you can always go to the C chain and use that. But I'm not here, unlike most other people, waving some banner that says, we must all use the same chain. We must all abandon the dollar and use AVAX. No. To the contrary, I'm saying we have built the system that can interoperate and integrate itself into the system that we have it. I'm not some crazy libertarian who's going to say, we must bring down all countries just so that my pet network that has only a single chain can then work on it. All of these single chain networks, all it takes is one game, and then suddenly their fees go sky high. And if you look at the subnet-based systems, multi-chain networks, it's a completely different beast. And I do suggest you take a look at what we've actually built.
Adeniyi,
I'm sorry, I'm going to add to this. I don't buy the sidechain argument. I'm sorry. I think it's a hiding away of the actual inherent failure of a system to scale, right? Your system doesn't scale. You shard into 20,000 databases. That's fine. It's been done many times. Oracle have done it. VMware have done it. Every other company has done it. It's fully understood. Our blockchain, our thesis on this is you build a scalable layer 1. And it scales horizontally. Google can build a scalable infrastructure, so can Mysten. I think we've taken the learnings there of real systems engineers who have done this for decades, and we've applied that to Web3. So the idea of sidechains, if someone wants a private network, actually, by the way, we work with some of the largest institutions in the world. They've not asked for a private network. They've actually asked for a permission network where you can maybe have rules and contracts on engagement. That can be done on public networks. So I hear what Emin's saying. I actually disagree. I think it's a great way to sell a cloud service, a great way to sell, a fragmented system, but I don't believe it's actually technologically moving.
Okay.
So I do need to say, very quickly.
One second.
Very quickly.
You got 10 seconds to respond because we're already at time, and then I'm going to give Illia the last word. You have 10 seconds. Go.
10 seconds. So subnets are not a scalability solution. I agree with that. So instead, it's the legal foundation that requires us allows us to support different legal requirements for different user bases. And if you don't understand that, then you don't understand how our financial system works.
Sure.
Okay. Illia, I'm going to give you the last word.
I think just to change kind of the aspect here, we should still think about users, right? There's different types of users who want to participate in kind of this economy, and there's 100+ million people who are using centralized exchanges and not using DeFi. The DeFi, the biggest used app is like, I think, Stargate, which is all just probably bots farming airdrop. But the idea here is that we actually need applications that can match experience and financial tooling of the centralized exchanges, and we only just getting them. And so to your point about why everybody was focused on DeFi, it was a casino. Everybody was excited about this. But we're getting now to experiences, right, that are able to be used by millions of people, able to onboard them, able to provide. So Orderly Network, for example, provides a trading experience that matches centralized exchange experience because they're running the order book in kind of almost as a roll-up outside of the chain, and then settle and have the kind of 1 second settlement time, which no centralized exchanges can match, right? So, but this is types of products we actually need to get to market and provide it to consumers because they don't want to spend all their time figuring out all of this kind of complexity of the DeFi ecosystem. That is more for bots and potentially professional traders to do that. And so now that we're getting there, I think we'll see a lot more usage coming from this. But again, it's more from a customer consumer onboarding side, not from the subnets or parachains or shards or whatever. We call them all different things, right? But at the end is it's a way to run stuff in parallel. How exactly it's done is and you can permission smart contracts, you can permission specific things, but at the end users don't care. That's the main thing.
Right.
What they care about is they can go into some front end, they can onboard, and they can use stuff, and they want to use composability that blockchain can provide, that you can go to any other place and you bring your assets with you, you bring your data with you, you have your social media, you have your kind of interactions. And that's kind of the missing piece that I think we're getting now. And this stuff is starting to work. That I think one thing to remember is, although it is bear market and people kind of feeling, this stuff is starting to work. We have things actually working in production. This is completely different from 18, 19 when we were at least we were starting, where none of this worked. There was like 5 users of Uniswap. Now like these things are working. The experience is good. We have really like popular apps starting to use this. So I'm just going to finish on that.
No, it's a beautiful note to end on. I will say I'm surprised how long it took for this to get heated, but I'm glad it did get there in the end.
That wasn't too bad.
Let's please give a hand for our spirited panelists and for a wonderful conversation.